Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Via Williams.
I'm Seychelle Van Poel.
And I'm Sarah Reynolds. Today we are going to talk about, could be argued, one of the most important parts of empire building.
Yes.
And that is strategic business planning, right? It's really hard to have an empire if you don't have a strategy and a plan.
True.
A plan that goes with it, right? And so much of that is around goal setting and making sure that you really look at things in the market and look at your business. I right now have been a studier. Is that a word? Studier.
Student.
Student.
It's been a long day.
A student.
Studier.
A studier. I like that better.
Yeah, a student of the book Scaling Up. I've talked about it in a couple episodes, but I think in that book it talks about just how important it is to have strategic time, strategic business planning time, and how as you're scaling you can't forget that, right? So today we are going to talk about that, how to do a strategic business plan and what we do sort of around that. So I think first and foremost, to have a business, every business has to have a customer.
Good point.
I know this is groundbreaking. I mean, this is like,
it is.
Aren't you glad you're listening
big stuff.
so far?
This is high level stuff.
Yes. You have to have a customer. Now, what's important about strategic business planning is creating your ideal customer. Creating your ideal customer, or I like to call it like a client avatar or a customer avatar, right? Who is your ideal client, your ideal customer, right? So creating that. How have you guys gone about creating your ideal customer?
Well, I can tell a story about that because it really kind of helped change the trajectory of my business. And we're talking about the real estate business that I built. So when I made a decision a long time ago, about 10 years ago now, that I wanted to sell real estate in a higher price point and more of a luxury price point. So I had to make some changes in my business because my business was not predominantly a high price point at the time. So at the time I didn't know it was called that, but I ended up like Googling and whatever, and I created an avatar, and it was like, okay, well, what is their name? What do they look like? Where do they work? Do they have kids? Where do their kids go to school? Like as specific as I could. What kind of car do they drive? And I thought, well, I don't know all that data. So I started previewing house after house after house, and the kind of houses I wanted to sell. And it was like, what are the cars in the driveway? And, whenever you walk through a house, and I just want to be clear, I was not inappropriate, but I would look at what was on the shelves and I would look at the plaques and I go, oh, there's a lot of people that work for Microsoft or Amazon because I'm in Seattle. Or, oh, it looks like there's a lot of, this school or that school. I can see things laying around. You just see things and notice things. And because my reticular activator was up, I was able to kind of start filling in the blanks, not with what I thought, but with kind of like data, kind of like, in the field research data. So by the time I started growing my team, I trained my team really early on who are, by then I knew it was called an avatar. And I remember I went to Zillow, the Zillow corporate headquarters, which is in Seattle. And if you go there, on their wall, they have their avatars on their wall in their sales floor. And so it's literally on a wall. It's like, Mindy middle-aged female real estate agent, or whatever it is. And then, buddy boy, male, like, they have all these names and they have photos, like stock photos, and they had it too. And it changed the scope of everything because I would tell my agents, look, if 40 people are going to come in your open house, right? Search the avatar out. Who's our target market? Who, if you have to make a triage decision on who you're going to spend time with, besides the obvious things like, go for our target market. And it was just a filter by which, like, if we're marketing, well, would Kelly Kirkland was one of their names.
Like
Would Kelly Kirkland, would she respond to this ad? Would she respond to this call to action? Would she respond to this mailing? No, she wouldn't, because it's too, So I just, that in real world, like, examples, it kind of was the filter through which we did almost everything on my real estate team at the time.
I think
so good.
That's brilliant. And I think this is why real estate, if you treat it like a business, can be so powerful, because a lot of what you're describing is when we used to work in the advertising agency world, that's how we got to know our clients. And when you're working on, like I would work on Merck Pharmaceuticals, Jazz at Lincoln Center, and Hershey's Chocolate all at the same time, which are very different demographics, right? One is literally a heart attack medicine, and the other is literally the chocolate that gets you to the heart attack. Like,
Oh my God.
like you have to know your different like ideal clients and demographics. And so I love that you took that business practice that deep into your real estate business, because it gives clarity around who you're looking for at all times. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Stephen Covey, who is obviously famous in terms of author and in business. And I think a lot of people will shorten the quote, and they say to begin with the end in mind, right? To begin with the end in mind. So who is the end customer? But what I actually love the full quote. Which is to begin with the end in mind means that you start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now. And so the steps that you take are always in the right direction. And I think that goes with what Via said. I couldn't help but think of that quote because she wouldn't know what ad to write if she didn't first know who is the end customer that she is trying to reach. So first and foremost, when you sit down to do your business strategic plan, you want to know who is your ideal customer. Who is your ideal customer, right? Second would be really what are the programs or what are the things that right now you are offering your ideal customer, right? So what are some things that you are offering that ideal customer? So I'm curious, Via, when you figured out who your, what was it, Kelly Kirkland?
Kelly Kirkland.
Okay. So when you figured out Kelly Kirkland, what were you doing currently when you figured that out in terms of what you were offering her?
Yeah, so great. I have, real world examples. So Kelly Kirkland, and then we had a male avatar as well. They weren't necessarily married, but, they were just kind of interchangeable. And I actually can't remember his name now, but for some reason I remember her. And one of the things that I started deep diving on is that back in the day, it was Microsoft. And by the way, now that's all switched over to Amazon. If you live in Seattle, the email addresses that you had on your database that were at Microsoft.com started switching to at Amazon.com. Like they just swept them all over. And one of the things, Sarah, was that our marketing, it was that I started going, well, what would they be used to seeing internally as, middle and high level and senior level executives at Microsoft at the time. And I noticed it was a lot of white space or a lot of black space. It was a lot of primary colors, straight type. So it wasn't cursive, it wasn't watercolor, pastels. It wasn't busy. It was very, very clean. If you think back to the Microsoft graphics, 5 to 10 years ago, even now. But so I designed my logo. It's a red circle, and there, everything has a ton of either white or black space, and I was really looking at what they would see internally, not even their consumer marketing. Their internal, and you can find anything on Google Images and on Google or whatever. And that's what I would often send to the graphic designers when they were designing anything from flyer templates to postcards. It was very, very thought through. I wanted them to be very comfortable subconsciously that we were in alignment with their values and what they did every day, and that we were viewed that way. And this is going to sound really funny, but I dressed as if I would dress if I were like a consultant coming into Microsoft. So when I was going in to meet with a client for, say, a listing appointment to list their home, I walked in and I thought, if I were a consultant that they were working with, what would I be wearing? I probably wouldn't be wearing like a skin tight, slick Armani suit with stiletto heels. I wouldn't do that, and then I started getting in tune to what would women in tech wear, maybe one or two steps, dressier than the norm. And so everything I did was really more for them. My brand was defined on what I felt like my target market needed and wanted and would resonate with, much more than my outlet for creative expression.
That's good.
Well, and you're truly living up to the Covey quote of beginning with the end in mind. I think for us, when we think about programs, it's what pain points do they have that I need to solve for them?
Yes.
And so
For sure.
for us, like, we work with a lot of CEOs and E-class executives. And one of the biggest problems we've had in recent years, and very hot markets here in North Texas and Dallas-Fort Worth, is, they don't know where they're going to move. And so for us, it became really important that we were innovating and being the first to market with different opportunities and programs for our clients that we could blast out that solve a pain point. And so we found that there were really 3 pain points that our clients were dealing with, and then our messaging caters to that. And so the first one is, I like my house now, and if I'm not excited about where I'm going, I don't want to sell this one, right? So it was a buy before you sell program, right? And we can help you find where you're going before you ever have to put your home on the market. The second one would be,
That's good.
we need our cash out of this home to be able to move to the next one. And so we came up with guaranteed sale program options, or even opportunities for bridge financing and other companies that we were bringing and expanding from all over the country to be able to give them the peace of mind that they weren't going to be homeless, but they could still get their cash and maximize the value out of the sale. The third problem that we found a lot of our executives and C-class clients had was they want to build wealth and they have no freaking idea how to do it. And so we have a lot of one-on-one coffees, conversations, meetups, and even employee lunches for our clients that we talk about wealth building through real estate. What are the advantages, the tax write-offs, the resources, and the how-to be a one-stop shop for those clients to be able to have a turnkey service. But really for us, that was the pain points of those 3 clients, and then all of our messaging caters to those 3.
That's awesome, Say. And we did something very similar to that. And so in terms of programs and what are their pain points, I always ask myself, what is keeping my ideal customer up last night? What kept them up last night?
So good.
What worries did they have that I can solve? And so that brings me to the biggest part really of strategic business planning is doing what in the business world is called a SWOT analysis, And I actually prefer, you can't even say it right, but I actually prefer SWTO, which of course doesn't sound as good. But whenever I sit down for strategic business planning, I do the S first, which is strengths. Then you do your weaknesses. And then I like to then look at my threats. And those 3 things then show opportunities. So the whole time you are coming up with opportunities that you see. So first and foremost, in a SWOT analysis, the first thing you look at are what strengths. So I like to do at least 3, right? So in my recommendation, depending on how fast you're growing, my recommendation is that you do this. If you're growing fast, you need to do this once a quarter. A minimum of once a quarter. And typically you're going to take 4 to 8 hours of strategic business planning time once a quarter if you're growing quickly and doing your SWOT analysis.
Okay, I'm not doing it enough.
Yeah,
I will just admit it right now. If it's once a quarter, no, I'm not.
It depends on the speed of which you're growing.
No, I know.
You need to do a minimum of once a year.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's something that you do want to look at pretty regularly. So first and foremost, the S is strengths. So what 3 strengths does your business have right now? What are the strengths of your business? And so you ask yourself that and create that white space where you can journal it out, right? I think it's Keith Cunningham that said, like, the best consultant you can get for your business is actually you in thinking time.
Yeah, Keith Cunningham really espouses that. The other thing too about strengths is I'm writing a business plan right now, and I'm in the middle of it. Like, I was just working on it yesterday and presented the preliminary plan, and in that, I have a section. It's like keys to success, which is really like what is it about the management team and about the resources we have that's going to make us successful, and that's that's strengths. And Sarah, I think it's worth it to start talking about internal versus external. That you start with the internal strengths and weaknesses. SW. I see your point to TO, but either way, SWOT or SWTO, you start with internal strengths and weaknesses. Then you move to external.
Yes.
Which is like, the opportunities and the threats. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's how it's broken up. So I remember when we sat down, George and I, my husband, said that we wanted to start a mortgage company. Mm-hmm. And we did our first ever sort of SWOT analysis. And for us, a strength was, he had almost a decade in lending experience, right? So that's a strength.
That's a huge strength.
Another strength is he happens to be partners at home and in life with a top real estate team, right? So that's a strength of that company, is that. So like, what are the strengths that you currently possess in your business as an individual? And so looking at that and writing that down. So those it's so important to do that, knowing
So that's
where
the
you're
S
strong.
in SWOT.
Yes.
Yeah, and then same with weaknesses, right? The W.
Yeah. So the W is weaknesses. So taking time and writing down what are the 3 weaknesses that you see right now in your business, in your career, what you're doing, but looking at your business and saying, what are the weaknesses right now? A big question I asked during this, well, actually probably more during the T, which is the threats, but I'll just go ahead and share it now. But a big question I asked myself is, if I was coming in to compete with me, what would I do?
Take me out. Yeah.
What would take me out? What could take me out? What? That's a threat
perfect.
there. So.
What scares you the most? What's, that's threat.
That's a threat. I think on the
Yeah,
weakness
that's
side,
threat.
I often see when I've done this with our team, or we used to do these a ton, right, in advertising too, because this is how we would build out, right, how their ad campaigns would go. And a lot of people hesitate to discuss the weaknesses openly, or they get into judgment really quickly. And it's okay just to list the weakness and let it sit. Like, it's okay. We don't have to solve every problem right now. It's okay for a weakness just to sit as a weakness, and we'll figure that out later, and don't feel like you need to get down the rabbit hole of like, well, that's a weakness, and it's like, it's really painful, and then we got to figure it out. And all of a sudden you're off the SWOT. So, and you're off the page onto something else.
And words do matter, and people kind of attach meaning to them.
Yep.
And I know it's literally SWOT, SWOT. But you can also view it as advantages and disadvantages if that takes the emotion out of it. Like, what's some disadvantages we have right now?
That's good.
What do we need to overcome? You could even call it, challenge. You probably want to stick with like disadvantages or weaknesses.
I think
but
the purpose is to feel bad, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
you're right.
Because you're doing a strategic.
Break us all
business
down,
plan.
Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, and so like
Then build us up.
Yeah, you want to understand because the purpose is to fix it. Like, that's the whole idea of the SWOT analysis, is to know. That's why I like the O at the end, because that all of those things lead to the opportunity. And if you don't first recognize that that's a weakness in your organization or in your business, then you can't fix it. Then it doesn't lead to the opportunity. And so it's a good thing. You got to change the way you look at it. It's a good thing to recognize it, because then
that's exactly right.
where you need to fix it.
And we say that all the time on our team of if we don't know where the problems are, we can't create a plan to fix them. So being transparent and open and vulnerable with where the problems are allow us the opportunity to create great solutions. If we bury them, it's no help.
My team hates it. I'm always like, I can't solve a problem I don't know about.
It's good, but it's so true. It's so true. So true.
Yeah. And sometimes we need to tell ourselves that about our own.
I know.
Yeah, our own organizations. I think one thing that is super powerful is for this question, for both actually. Typically, the newest people in your empire, in your organization, know your strengths and weaknesses more than you do. Because they are not blinded to things, and they're not yet emotional to it. So many times they will see it. So like we had a new team member join us a few years ago, and we have a department that's sort of a client retention department. And we're the only team that I know of that has it. It's like if you were to call Verizon and cancel your services, they would say, please hold, and they would transfer you to and their job is, you think you're canceling, their job is to change the outcome, right? So we have a whole department that focuses on that. And I remember the new team member runs into my office and says, is this normal? Like, do other teams have a department that if like a house isn't selling, they're analyzing what needs to happen? If someone's not happy, they're doing everything they can to make it happy. Like a whole department that's their job. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about it, but he was like, this is amazing. And
It's amazing.
yeah, he's like, I've been your client and I've known you for over a decade and I didn't know you had this. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it was someone new that recognized, I think this is different and good, right? It was someone new. And so like sometimes you want to sit down your newest people and say, what are the strengths you see in our team, in our organization? What are the weaknesses you see, right?
That's really good.
And so a lot of times going to them and finding out can be huge.
Yeah. Big time.
That's really, really good. So let's wrap up SW of SWOT though. Let's just, these are the internal factors that are going to affect the issue at hand. So we've got strengths and weaknesses, and I would urge you to think in terms of, financial, technical,
Yes.
your competitive position, your market share, people, personnel,
Yes.
that you're missing or need to be replaced, your actual product offering. This is kind of the
Yes.
place, for all of that.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, so then you can choose your order. Normally it would be next opportunity, but we can talk about threats next if you want.
No, let's do opportunities. So what are the opportunities that you see?
Well, the focusing question to me always on this is, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? So what is the, and then what are the fruits and the rewards around solving that problem?
Can
Really.
I ask a question on this? So I've seen this go two different ways when you get to the opportunity side. One is that you get down a really narrow path, right, and kind of get into action really quickly around it. Like somebody's coming up with ideas, you're throwing them on the board, and you decide on one pretty quickly and go. The other side I've seen it go is get kind of bubblicious, as we would say it in our family, where it's like the ideas are all over the place, right? It's like bubbles popping up all over the place. And they don't necessarily have like a specific direction. When you guys are doing your SWOTs and you're getting to the opportunity section, how much direction and control are you looking for over this area for time management's sake? Or are you just letting it fly and there are no bad ideas? Because I've seen it go both ways, right? And there are no bad ideas. We put them all on the board and then we'll decide either at the end of this or at a later time.
This question, me and you and our achiever strength is so similar.
I know.
Because you speak like I and this has been the hardest thing for me with strategic business planning.
Yep.
Because I want to then narrow it down to focus to then go achieve.
And go right then. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I imagine a
but
lot of our
when you-
listeners feel that way too.
Yes. But when you're doing strategic thinking and or business planning, I've had to learn not to do that, like to let it flow. The answer is you let it flow, and if there's people in the room doing it with you, which I recommend it. Okay, do not try to channel them. Do not try to hold them back, because like we want them to just like let it flow, which can be it's very hard for me. Like I'm starting to take this ashwagandha. It's like a herb. Sorry, I don't know if it's an herb. Your faces right now. Okay, before my strategy time with my team.
Are you taking
What is
something to
happening
mellow
right
you
now?
out? Are you taking
Is she like
something?
going? Is she like
Sarah's
taking
taking
drugs
things
and
to
admitting
mellow
it
her
to
out.
podcast?
It's not drugs.
I'm thinking,
They're not drugs.
those-
It's good for you.
What is it when you
for
go
you, but-
drink the stuff in
I'm
like
gonna-
South America or Mexico? What is that?
No, I don't actually know what it
when you
is. All
drink
I
it?
know
Or
is the
chata?
bottle
No.
got me because it's supposed to like relax you
Not
and
peyote.
help.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it has worked.
I feel like disclaimer is gonna need to what are you taking and admitting
What
to
is
our
someone
listeners?
giving you to chill you out before
No,
these?
it's
She's like,
good.
life is great.
This is true confession time. She just slips it in the middle of a conversation. We're like, what? Wait, what is she
Might be worth
taking?
watching the YouTube on this one to get a reaction.
Okay.
No,
Oh
the
my
point
God.
is if
I
you
don't know what's going on, but
But I'm in. I'm in for it. Let's do this.
if it's hard for you just to like sit
All in.
and think, like I have two team members
can
that
you
are,
take
are
drugs?
Hold on. I have two that are very strategic, including my mom. My mom is super strategic. People like that will just start talking forever, like in terms of thinking. You guys Keep laughing at me.
I almost spit my coffee out. I literally
almost
spit my coffee completely over the camera.
Because I'm looking at Seychelles right now. No, but it's true.
It's a vitamin. It's a good supplement.
Oh my God, don't worry. It's a vitamin. I swear to God,
I'm putting
that's what
air
they all
quotes
say.
around
Okay.
it. Yep.
No, it's a
Take
vitamin.
No, but
Vitamin. Sarah's like, this guy shows up at my house. It's in a paper bag. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go on.
The point is,
Okay,
we'll rate it in.
Okay, sorry. We're not
Because it was hard for me to let it flow, let everyone just let it flow. Like, and so I had to relax and not be so like type A, and it has helped. Okay.
Good.
So the answer to Say's great question is take ashwagandha. No. Take whatever it is I'm trying to say.
No, you can't start that again.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No,
Oh my
read
gosh,
it
The point
again.
is let your team, let the people around you just start their ideas, what they're seeing, what are the
No, it
opportunities.
was a great question.
And just
Yeah,
like
it was a
we
great
like to put big sticky notes of each of the items in a room with markers, and anyone can think and write anything, like anything they want. If any opportunity that they see externally, they can write it out. I mean, I look at in the real estate industry in particular, iBuyers
yes.
came into markets and took massive market share. I mean, in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Very short period of time. Okay. And guaranteed it was on someone's SWOT analysis because they saw an opportunity
You're right.
that there are sellers that want offers right away that
no
don't want to
hassle.
have their house on the market.
Yep.
And they wrote it out, and that became their plan, right? That became their plan. So it's so important to be looking at what are the opportunities. Like if you were to go into that market, what would you do to start up? What are the opportunities you see? What are the pain points? Like Via said and Say said earlier. But
Focusing on competition, on the competitive environment, both in, I think, opportunities and threats.
yes,
Where there are opportunities where no one's in this micro niche or segment.
Yes.
And yet, the threat could be, who could do it, who has the resources or the brain power to do it, who's
Yeah.
tried and failed,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I remember, and then of course T is the threat, right? So let's talk about that. So what Via is saying, and also I remember when Gary said, when I see a threat, or he said, when I can think, okay, this is how a competitor could impact my business, I just start a new division in the business. And basically
Yeah.
that captures that within it, right? So, but using threats, like how could someone come in and how could they hurt you in your business? What are the threats that you're seeing in terms of external threats around you?
One thing I love that Gary does really well with this when we talk about the threats category and like solving the problem is oftentimes it's attached to a who. And it's not just a we should do this. He immediately on that SWOT analysis goes, who is going to do this? And that's something I think he does really,
well, sometimes
really well.
sometimes you decide you need to buy your competitor.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Because the threat is, and that can also be there's a lot behind that.
Yeah.
I mean, so looking at the competitive landscape, I think is where is you want to spend some time on that and on opportunities and threats, I think.
Yeah. I with the book called Remarkable sort of changed my perspective on a lot of this with competitors, because I'm a very competitive is my number one strength, or competition is my number one strength. And a lot of times I would view competition in sort of a negative light. But now, when you view it as when you're able to look at them in terms of threats, that they really help you, right? And at the end of the day, the consumer always wins when you're constantly trying to add more value to your client or to your customer, right? They will always win. So this was awesome, you guys. It's so important to have strategic business planning time. To take the time to think through,
I need to do it more.
Number one, make sure you know who your ideal client is, who your avatar is, and then building out that SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, which are internal, opportunities and threats, which are external, and taking that time to look at that on at least again, once a year. But if you're growing quickly, you want to look at it honestly once a quarter. So get out there, have some strategy around your plan, and we know that you're gonna make it because we are all about having big businesses and even bigger lives. So thank you for joining us today. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.